Hi guys and welcome to the channel. Today we're working on a Tasmanian Oak side table. It's a simple one to design, but we're going to add a few unusual design elements to really make it our own. Now let's talk wood. You can choose any hardwood species you like. I've chosen Tasmanian Oak for my project, as it's quite available to me and I love the natural dark lines that form into grains over time. My local hardwood dealer only sells oak dressed all round. It's a bit more expensive, but I don't have to go through the joining and planing process on this one, which is always a win. So we started off this one by cutting the legs down to length, and now we're cutting the stretches that are going to join the legs together. We're going to attach the stretches to the legs using the domino joiner. Now this is an expensive tool, one I'm lucky to have, but if you're making this for yourself and didn't have access to one, using dowels will achieve the same result. It'll just take a little longer. Now what is a domino joiner? A domino is pretty similar to a biscuit joiner, which you may be familiar with. Instead of cutting a thin slot for an oval-shaped biscuit, the domino joiner cuts a mortise that can accommodate a thick tenon. To do that, it exploits a spinning bit that is similar to a drill bit. The trick here is that it moves not only up and down, but also sideways. This allows it to cut a full mortise in a single plunge. So now that we've got all our mortises cut, it's time to place in our tenons. Now we're just going to fit this one up dry without glue, just to make sure I haven't made any mistakes marking it out before I cut the joints. It's really helpful to be able to assemble the sides and then mark out the stretches that are going to connect the two pieces together. Assembling it this way should help try and keep it nice and square, and we shouldn't have any weird unexpected twists or bows that we need to try and deal with later on in the project. There we go, that's one side all dry fit. Now there are some saw marks that were left in this piece from the sawmill. I probably should have worked around this piece, but I only picked up the right amount of wood for the project and didn't have enough to spare. This side table is just headed to my house and I don't mind some rough saw marks. Now it's time to add some roundovers with the router before glue up. Here I'm using a 3mm or 1/8 inch roundover bit. Doing this before the glue up is going to save me a lot of headaches when it comes time to do the finishing process, as I wouldn't be able to get the router into these tight areas after it's all glued up. Time for the glue up. With this one you need to try and move in a timely manner. The glue I'm using is Type Bond 2, which has quite a small working window. It will start to tack up quite quickly, and there is always a chance that things won't come together as you planned. I swear wood glue can smell fear. So move as quickly and confidently as you can, in case you need to make any small adjustments along the way. We start off by adding some glue into the mortises, and then we add our tenons. After the tenons are in place, we apply glue to the top and spread it evenly with a brush. I've probably overdone the amount of glue on this one. You want to try and add as little as possible to create a strong joint, but not make it too hard on yourself for cleanup. Pay close attention to cleaning up the glue on the inside corner areas, where it will be really difficult to get to with the sander later on. Now repeat the process on the other side and get it into clamps. Now while that's setting up and doing its thing, we're going to start working on the bottom shelf. Now for the bottom shelf panel. I've kept aside the thin boards with the most interesting grain activity for the bottom shelf. We're going to be applying a bit of a different finish to the body of this piece that will hide a lot of the natural look of the wood, but we're going to add a clear finish to the bottom shelf and the top, so I've done my best to keep the most interesting pieces set aside for these. When gluing up a panel, we want to try and keep everything as flat as possible, with nice square joins to give us a seamless look. You can see here we have nice even squeeze out, a great indicator that these all fit together really well. We need to repeat the process for the top of the table, exactly the same as the lower panel, simply using thicker boards. Now let's leave these to set up overnight. Now that the sides have sat overnight and done their thing, it's time to round over all of the inside edges. This is a really small round over, but it's what makes your furniture go from feeling like blocky firewood into feeling and looking like a finished piece of furniture with just a few minutes of work. Before gluing the two halves together, we're going to give everything a good sanding so we don't have to try and deal with it after the table is assembled. We're going to start at 80 grit to remove all the gouges left from the milling process, and then move up to 120 before we do the final bit of glue up. Now it's time to bring the two halves together. After cutting mortises with the domino, we pop a few more tenons into the holes and pop our last few stretches in. Double checking that you're lining up the marks that you've made on your pieces, which is definitely not what I did the first time I assembled this, and pop it all into clamps to set up overnight. Upon reviewing this video for the voiceover, I feel like all I've talked about is cutting and gluing. So here we go, some more cutting and gluing. Now we need to make a drawer. Now this is not a definitive guide on how to make a drawer. Basically, we're going to take 4 pieces, cut a dado slot into all of those, and cut a bottom panel to fit. And to hold it all together, a little bit of glue, followed by a couple of brad nails in every corner. And here we are attaching some brace pieces to the bottom stretchers to hold the bottom shelf in place. Using a piece that's the same thickness as the shelf, I'll space these ones down from the top and add a small amount of glue and a few pin nails to help hold it in place as the glue dries. And after getting the drawer installed with push to open slides, it's time to start applying finish. For this piece we're going for a bit of a different look. We're going to start by applying a black stain and leaving it to dry. For the finish on the top and the shelf, we're going to be using a clear hard wax oil. You simply wipe it on, let it sit for a few minutes, and then buff it to a nice luster. And now that the stain has dried on the body of the side table, finish it with a coat of black hard wax oil. And to attach the top, I've made a small recess with a Forstner bit to leave a little bit of room for a few figure 8 tabletop connectors. So you might have noticed a hole in the top from an earlier shot. It's there to accept a fixed lamp. It turns out the lamps you buy from most big box stores have a nut on the bottom that allows you to change the base. I've simply drilled a hole through the top and mounted it with the retaining nut from the bottom. I'm really happy with how this one's turned out. I'm sure it'll make a welcome addition to my home. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you like the video, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. Thanks very much, guys. See you on the next one.